Hey, we're Blenderstyle, and we're coming down across the alleyway to bring you our review of Green Day, American Idiot, released in 2004. Cheers, fellas.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
What are we, sober? So if you don't count the Hacks and Cloak, this is the first time we've reviewed a band again on another album.
It's our second Green Day album.
It is our second Green Day album.
We did Dookie.
We did Dookie as a fan request. I wanted to pick this one, but I also wanted to give something back to the fans. I mostly picked this because I know me and Nathan both kind of really like this album, and I know you weren't a big fan of it.
Right.
And so I kind of wanted to force you to give it a really long, hard listen and see where you ended up on it.
We had a lot of time with this.
We had a ton of time.
Like several weeks.
I think several months.
Several months. It's been on our list forever. And the first playthrough, I couldn't even get through like any of it.
Yeah.
I guess we're jumping into it because this is like the jumping off point. It's not Dookie.
It's not.
I like Dookie a lot, and this was like very challenging for me to get into it. But Nathan, you've been a fan of this one too. I think you mentioned that in our Dookie review.
Yeah, I'm very much I love Green Day. Green Day is a band I've loved for many, many years. Like, it was like one of the first bands that ever got me into,
This is like their seventh album.
Yeah.
And I think this is like after they were putting out some duds, according to...
Yeah, so kind of to touch on where you were at, after Dookie, I don't think I listened to a couple tracks here and there, but I never got into Green Day. I never liked anything they put out after that. This album came out after, what, Kerplunk and Nimrod or something?
No, Kerplunk is an early album, but it was after Warning.
Warning, that's what it was. And
which is completely different from this.
And they had some kind of flops, like their commercial success wasn't really doing very well at the time.
I think Warning was actually the only album. It was the first album that didn't do very well. Like Nimrod was before that, and that did pretty well.
Yeah,
Insomniac.
And so this album, from what I understand, was kind of a do or die for the band. They were all kind of fighting amongst each other. They had recorded another album, Cigarettes and Valentines, that was stolen. And when it came time...
Stolen?
Yeah, the master tapes were stolen, I guess.
Oh, bummer.
And when they went to their producer and they were like, oh man, what are we going to do? He's like, well, I mean, does that represent the best Green Day has to offer? And they all kind of said, yeah, you know what, it really doesn't. Let's start over. And they came up with this. And when it came out, it was huge. It was kind of a...
Yeah, I remember hearing this on the radio and like on TV and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was something... It was kind of a throwback to their old style, but with some of the new stuff mixed in with it. And it really did a good job of blending all the different genre or different generations of their band.
Do you think it's because of the change in sound is why it... Like they didn't go back to let's do an old school Green Day album. They went completely new direction.
They went new direction, but I also think
Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Yeah, but I also think they
it's like that, right? It's like you told me it's a punk rock opera.
It is,
and that helped a lot.
This is it's weird because lots of bands sing about what's going on at the time, like politically and like in the world and things like this. But I feel like the way they did this one, they brought that in as kind of a voice of a generation for all the people that had grown up with all that shit. And it kind of hit home because, I mean, you and me kind of lived through the same stuff. All this crap that they're talking about was going on, around the same time. And they kind of brought it to all the stuff that nobody wanted to talk about or touch on, and the angst and shit. They brought it to the forefront.
I think you're completely right with let's mention again when it came out in 2004. That was the year I was supposed to graduate.
Whoops.
And but when this album came out, like I said, I've been a fan of. Anyways, back to originally let's not get sidetracked, because I do that with Green Day. I get all
You're very excited about Green Day all the time.
Yeah, but what I liked about this also is that people try to lump this in with the politics and stuff, which yes, it touches base on politics, but it touches on broken homes, divorce. It talks about, being a young kid in this, time of, war and stuff that was going on. And I think you're completely right.
Yeah.
I think this kind of hits home on a lot of different topics.
Yeah, it's not so much the political side. It's all the stuff that you were a kid that you believed in and stuff, and the disillusion as you got older of like, oh, this is all bullshit. And they do a really good job of bringing that out.
Well, when you're young, shit happens to you, right? Like you can't do anything about it. You're a kid, you go to school, but shit happens to you, and it's wrong. You see things that are wrong. You hear your parents say things that you're like, this is wrong. Instinctively, right?
Yeah.
And then I feel like that's what this is. It's like kind of just being like, I'm not with you guys. Like, fuck you.
Yeah, it's calling everything out for what it is. It's really cool.
Not everything has to be even politicized, right? Mm-hmm. And like that can even go with what's going on, with nowadays. Even like, it's just being a young youth. You know what I mean?
I think this was a kind of a precursor. This vibe feels like a precursor to the vibe now. Mm-hmm. Like people are more upset.
It's like that documentary Idiocracy.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think why I had a hard time with it is how it's angry, right? He's pissed off, but it's hard for me to kind of get that from the Green Day sound.
Okay.
Yeah, I found myself being very hypocritical.
Happy that it's so bad?
No,
that it's so sad?
I'm like, why are you talking shit about the government? That's so lame. I'm like, wait a second, I love Suicidal Tendencies and other bands that do that. Like, that's crazy.
But they just do it more poppy.
And it's a hard package for me to get behind. But when I understood it and started like looking at it from that perspective, it did start growing on me.
Okay.
It's a very ambitious album.
It really is.
For them to do like something this massive and actually pull it off with like a handful of like, not even bangers, but like iconic songs, like of a generation.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? This sticks out in like our culture.
I think he succeeded in a punk rock opera or musical or whatever the hell he wants to call it. You know what I mean? I'd like to just touch on some things that I kind of like before I kind of say some stuff or whatever, This album had to open up with American Idiot, right?
Yeah.
Because it is the idiot of the group. It is not like kind of...
It's an outlier.
Whatever, right? But I think you kind of need that, right? That dummy to go into a song like Jesus of Suburbia, dude.
Which is epic, yeah.
It's a great fucking song, dude. And like... it had to come first because of that. And then, say, like, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, it needs Holiday, right? Because Holiday is also a big song for them, but, like, I think Boulevard of Broken Dreams is not all that great. But Holiday coming before it is good.
I agree, yeah.
It going and starting with Are We the Waiting and St. Jimmy, right? Mm-hmm. And then it ends with, like, Whatsername, which is very, like... almost like adult-like, of an ending. He succeeded.
Yeah.
These songs, honestly, on their own, are kind of fucking annoying, right?
But as a piece,
I think this is good.
Oh, for sure. I agree. I think the length and some of this stuff in the middle, if you take it for individual stuff, it really drags the whole thing down, and you're just like, oh, we're back to that.
That's interesting, yeah.
Green Day stuff that didn't get a lot of stuff. But then if you listen to it as a whole piece, the story of like the progression of this character and his understanding of how his life evolves as he gets older or whatever, it's really cool to look at it.
I want to say one thing that Green Day probably had going for them with such an epic thing and like kind of serious thing is Green Day's never really, I mean, obviously they take themselves serious, but they don't really take themselves serious.
No,
like as a band, they kid around with each other. They like...
Their album was called Dookie.
Yeah, and like
there's a song about masturbation on it, you know what I mean? Yeah. There's a lot of songs about masturbation on it.
And yeah.
You know what was weird, dude? This is gonna sound really fucking weird. The guitar playing reminded me of Metallica at this time, like Metallica at 2004 to like right after Load, and they're starting to, before they start doing like trying to get heavy again. Metallica had this certain like guitar sound, and for some reason I'd be listening to this album and it would remind me of that. And this album also kind of reminds me of later. This is like later Green Day.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like later Metallica. Like some people thinks it's real good. Think that like Load and Reload are good. I just cannot. Yeah, I can't. I just don't like it. But it is some of it is objectively good, and I think this is not bad.
Well, I would say that Metallica has done better than Green Day because after American Idiot is where I start to like that.
Lose
you know,
it.
that's where Green Day started to lose me.
Really?
Like tracks, like albums after this, I was like,
Do
did
you
not
like
give a
shit
shit.
after this?
I couldn't tell you a single thing they did after this.
Well, I listened to Father of All Motherfuckers, and it was real bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
But
real
there's
bad.
like shit behind that. Like that was the last album that they were going to be doing with the label that they had been with.
It sounds
pretty much their
exactly
whole
like
career.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they were kind of doing it as like a middle finger to them as well. Because
Which
they
is
just
pretty
came out
punk
with
rock.
Savages, and like it's redeeming for me.
Okay. And see, that's kind of the thing with the, Green Day, you know, Dookie, and then I lost track of everything, and this came out, and it was kind of a resurgence, and then everything since then, same thing. It's kind of like in the background. I couldn't tell you anything. But I thought, I kind of agree with you on the guitar work. There's some dad rock metal guitar
Maybe
going
that's
on.
what it is. Dad
Metal.
rock.
I
Dad
think it
metal
just
guitar.
gets rocky at times, which Green Day is like kind of like
Yeah.
they've kind of took a big step into like almost like sounding like a rock band.
Well, I
you know?
also wonder if they're like just throwing money at equipment like Metallica can do, and they get the result of it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm sure.
I mean, this album also spawned like a whole Broadway play based on it.
I mean, that makes total sense.
So
And the marketing and stuff was just crazy.
It's so cool.
Davey Havoc from AFI actually played St. Jimmy.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
in some of the things. But also, I wanted to bring up that what I kind of also like about this is I'm not sure about Panic at the Disco, but that's the only thing I can kind of bring up. Like, it's a concept kind of thing. Like,
Yeah,
bands
I can
started
see the
doing
comparison.
concept stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think Green Day, like, Say Anything, like, they did also like a musical. Their first album was like a musical whatever thing, and I think Green Day kind of broke that down for other bands to kind of do that, and I think
yeah.
that's kind of cool, you know.
Yeah, to make it more, instead of just a band, more of an art piece.
Yeah, like why not make an art piece and then go on to make shitty albums?
I mean, I guess it's a good one to like end their good album stretch with, right?
Yeah, well,
it's like a
I mean,
big
they
fan.
might come out with something even better. Like I said, Savages, I think it's a decent album. I think
Well, give it a couple more albums and they'll
maybe
put out
they'll
another.
come out with a.
Do you think they're
American Idiot.
trying too hard on everything?
I hope that. Like, what do you mean trying? In
They're
what
like
way?
just like Father of All Motherfuckers doesn't sound like this, doesn't sound like Dookie. It's like they're trying something way different.
Like I said, well, Green Day also has had other albums and been like the three of them and called themselves different band names and done different, like Green Day's always done stuff like
So
this.
it's always been weird, and sometimes
they,
it just
they have fun
and it
Like,
doesn't hit.
They genuinely like each other.
Yeah,
They
well,
make music
it's a-
together. And,
That's the best thing about Green Day is the three dudes being, it's just like us.
yeah, how do you also get that big
Power
with
trio.
that shitty of a fucking name?
God,
So wait, I
Blenderstyle's
gotta
okay.
ask you.
Well, hold on. I want to touch on one thing. So kind of to say what you said, before this album came out, they did an interview that I read that I think it was Trey or maybe Mike said, we had played, we started off kind of with the heavier, more punk sound, and then we went to kind of this modern alt rock, pop rock kind of thing. And we just got tired of playing it. And we went back to the thing. And I feel like that's what Green Day does. They play something that they have fun with, and then they get tired of it and they do something else. And it might not hit with the fans and it might not hit with other people, but they're still always true to themselves and what they want to do.
They're also big Who fans.
Mhm.
Why? Maybe they're Tommy. I don't know. But
Pinball. Yeah.
so Matt, did Casey kind of change your mind on this, or
Boys and the people watching, doing ratings is hard.
I've been saying that for weeks.
It's like a balance between how good I think the album is versus how much I love it or hate it.
Well, and that's going to change.
Usually
depending on
those
your
are
mood.
like
yeah.
together, right?
Mhm.
Steely Dan, I realized it's good. My like for it went good. I gave it a good rating. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
This is weird because I think it's objectively good.
Yeah.
Like after I listen to it over and over again, I'm like, clearly this is good. It would be crazy for me to say it's not good.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like it. It does suck, kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, it's whiny.
Yeah,
It just,
yeah.
ugh. So I give it a 3.5 out of 5.
Okay.
It is good. It is good.
Hmm.
But
It's not your
if I went lower, I think I'd just be disrespect. It's too disrespectful. You know
So
what I mean?
what'd you say again?
3.5.
Okay.
It was started like the first playthrough. I was like, this is the worst. Like it's really annoying to me.
I remember you sent that text. You're like, "Oh, do we have to do this one?"
Yeah, and I listened to it a bunch, and I'm just like, all right. It is good.
Yeah.
And I read the lyrics a lot. You know what I mean? I got into it. Yeah. I think, you know what sucks is I think the rhythm section is like overshadowed by Billy Joe's like ego.
Mm-hmm.
And his, like his ambition on this. It's like, that's what I liked about Green Day is like the drums and the bass just like being, I don't know. And this lacks that. And it does. I got over that this is Green Day.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because it doesn't, to me, I don't think this sounds like what I remember Green Day. So I got over that, but it's still whiny and annoying as shit.
Yeah, it's almost overly ambitious for the band that has always been.
No, that saves it. It's just the style of like.
No, it saves it.
No, I think if this was a collection of like wimpy songs, it would be really bad. But they like constructed this brilliant. It is brilliant, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like what they've done here, it's very impressive.
Yeah,
I don't like it. I won't ever listen to it again.
Okay.
If I hear like Boulevard or Broken, September on, you know,
that's
I'm like,
awesome.
that's pretty good. And I'll probably text you guys in like 2 years and be like, I was totally wrong.
Yeah.
You know, subscribe. We'll release a
He's like,
review.
maybe I was wrong, but I am drunk off whiskey.
Nathan, American Idiot.
I will give this a 5.0 because I think it's my last album. It's like their swan song. Is that what, you know what I mean? Like it's
hurrah.
like I like took shrooms and listened to this whole thing with some friends one time, and it was the coolest experience. And I know you'll be watching, and
you know, Green Day will never get better.
I have hope.
Yeah.
Every time they come out with an album, I listen to it, and I do sometimes get some songs. Mm-hmm. And it's the one that I even tell my wife. It's like, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the album. So I give it a 5.0 just because of, I think it's ballsy, and I think it's also ballsy to give this a 5.0.
I think it makes total sense. Did you love it like immediately when it came out?
No, so it kind of annoyed me a little bit too when it first came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was on a totally different trip, but I just kept listening to it.
So is this one you go back to a lot now?
Not a lot, just because it is one of those ones you kind of have to like. I'll do like a road trip, just because for me, I had to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah. Exactly. It doesn't work individually.
Yeah, and it's going to be with some people that are going to be cool with it. You know what I mean?
I'm going to be like, I turned it off.
I would not do that.
Casey, your pick?
So I went 4.5 out of 5. I kind of
4.5?
Yeah, 4.5. I kind of agree with Nathan. When I first heard this, it was Jesus of Suburbia and St. Jimmy and Homecoming were the songs that hooked me on it. And everything else in between was filler, and it was annoying and stuff. But then I think, like you said, once I started understanding it as the art piece that is instead of just a collection of songs, it made a lot more sense. But I just love like hearing Green Day back to kind of their roots as a good band, which was cool. And I'm with Nathan. One day they'll put something else out that's good.
I have hope too.
Until then, I mean, this is the swan song for me.
Good pick.
Well, we're Blenderstyle, and that was Green Day, American Idiot. Like, leave a comment, tell us what you think. Did Green Day put anything else good after this out?
Wake me up when this album ends.